This video is about the definition of the ubiquitous word field of mathematical physics. Field is a mathematical concept that is universally invoked and treated as a physical object. This usage is irrational and thus unscientific. Field is not a thing. A charged object in a magnetic field orbits in circles around nothing. The question is whether there is any physical entity in contact with the ball. Theorists explain that it is the field. The problem is that field is not a physical object. The word field designates an abstract mathematical concept. It cannot be used as a thing. Field is a region of values, a gradient of strengths measured in a spatial volume. Field maps radially decreasing strengths of a given parameter such as gravity, temperature, and magnetism. Field is a description and not an explanation. Field gives us no insight into causes and mechanisms. Field tells us quantitatively how and not qualitatively why an event happened. Field is an unscientific word and should never be used to explain physical phenomena. Michael Faraday invented the word field around 1845. To refer to a region of influence of a magnet. Faraday defined the word field more formally in a paper he published in 1851. Any portion of space traversed by lines of magnetic power may be taken as a field, and there is probably no space without them. The field may vary in intensity of power from place to place. How the magnetic force is transferred through bodies or through space, we know not. Whether the result is merely action at a distance, as in the case of gravity, or by some intermediate agency, Faraday was thoroughly convinced that the lines of force that formed in the region he called field were of a physical nature, stating, "I cannot conceive curved lines of force without the conditions of a physical existence in that intermediate space." James Maxwell reached the same conclusion, stating, "Field, the space in the neighborhood of the electric and magnetic bodies. In that space, there is matter in motion." Indeed, if we place a magnet underwater, we see how the iron filings are collected one by one, by something invisible and intangible to humans that is moving through the water and coming in physical contact with each nugget. It is these lines that move inside the mathematical region called field that physicists must identify unambiguously if they wish to provide a physical interpretation to magnetism. The lines of force are the objects and not the mathematical concept known as field. It's the difference between forest and tree. A tree is an object, many trees is not. The irony is that theorists teach exactly the reverse. The mathematical word field has been extrapolated to describe a gravitational region. But again, field is just a mathematical description and cannot be invoked to provide a physical interpretation of the mechanism of gravity. Field is just a bunch of numbers buzzing around an object like bees around a beehive. Field is not an agent or mediator that can be used to identify the cause or source of gravity. Hence, it is irrational for a theorist to provide a physical interpretation, a mechanism, using the word field as an object. Field is not a thing, but a region where objects that are invisible and intangible to humans are in motion.
Field is a concept. A line of force is the object. Theorists have for decades been spreading the incongruity that field is a thing, whereas lines of force don't even exist. The worldly wisdom taught and repeated in schools around the world is that a line of force is merely a didactic tool used to visualize the hidden forces of magnetism. Theoretical physicists certainly have this in reverse. We can see the shapes of those supposedly inexistent lines of force with a ferrocell, without the need to sprinkle iron filings. The mathematical region known as field, on the other hand, extends indefinitely. An object is that which has shape. There is no object that is infinite. Hence, pursuant to the scientific definition of object, the infinite field doesn't qualify as a thing for the purposes of physical interpretations. It is the lines of force which are the real three-dimensional objects. Whatever they are, it is indisputable that each line has shape. These lines move iron filings around one by one underwater. A line of force is, therefore, by definition, a three-dimensional object. What are those lines of force? In quantum mechanics, electricity consists of electron beads flowing from atom to atom and from negative to positive poles. This model is based on Niels Bohr's planetary atom. Bohr envisioned a tiny bead jumping back and forth between abstract mathematical concepts known today as energy levels or orbitals. This model is irrational because the proponent cannot justify why the negative electron bead does not fall into the positive nucleus or spontaneously fly away. Yet more irrational, theoretical physicists morph these mathematical orbital regions into physical containers. And to this day, proponents have no idea what positive and negative mean in physical terms. What Bohr measured is actually a point on a physical shell that encapsulates the nucleus. The atom consists of a proton star enclosed by a membrane. Both proton and electron are made of threads, the same threads that make up the DNA-like entity that connects them.
The rope model of light and gravity identifies the lines that swing around in the region known as field as physical threads. These threads have their origins in the atoms and the DNA-like two-strand ropes that interconnect them. The atoms and the ropes themselves are made of these threads. The in situ torsion of the ropes is what we identify as light. The unimaginably thin three-dimensional threads have shape and therefore qualify as objects. Like the air, they cannot be seen. And like the mediators of gravity and magnetism, they cannot be touched. Therefore, they cannot be discovered through experiments. The only way to approach the issue is through the mind, by making assumptions. Imagine a girl skipping rope. The swinging rope traces a region we call field. But it is the rope that is the object that is scanning the region. It is the rope and not the field that is striking the flying rocks that fail to touch the girl. It is physical threads swinging at great speeds that compel the iron filings to line up along Faraday's lines of force. And it is these swinging threads which compel a charged ball to orbit around nothing. A magnetic field also has the uncanny ability to draw in smoke released in its vicinity. Under the rope model, the walls of threads that swing around in the region we call field come in physical contact with each of the molecules that comprise the smoke. Whatever moves iron filings and molecules had better be a physical object.